Serious, what revenge of yours hit the victim way worse than you thought it would, to the point you said maybe I shouldn't have done that? I was dating this girl and my friend saw her around town a few times and humiliated her in an effort to embarrass me. I told him to stop bothering her, but he did it again. That night I convinced him to try getting back together with his wildly insane and manipulative ex that he hadn't spoken to in years, thinking that he would just humiliate himself by trying. Well, they banged and got back together for a while and had a baby. Now they are terrible single parents. My friends and I used to pull a lot of pranks on each other growing up, and about 10 years ago I was helping my buddy set up a new business. He was ordering business cards and the company he was going through was offering I think 500 or so free with a large order, so we decided to prank our other friend. We made business cards with his name, phone number, home address and had his job title as professional creep with the slogan "If I'm creepin', you ain't sleepin'." We passed these cards out all over town. He was getting really harassing phone calls for a while and couldn't figure out why. After about 2 years he found one of the cards on a random fridge at a party and put 2 and 2 together. He was pissed and is still getting random calls 10 years later. I feel really bad about that one. My brother and cousins were walking home from school. Well, my brother and I were walking and my cousins were on bikes. They kept circling us and making fun of us because we didn't have bikes. One of my cousins then spit on me. Out of reflex, I blasted her with my trumpet case and she went flying, landed on the concrete and broke her arm. I felt awful. It was the first and last time I ever hit a girl. My family believed every word of the story, knew this cousin was always a total bitch to me, and largely believed she had it coming. I still felt awful though. When I was in 5th grade my teacher gave out a shitty ton of homework one day, so I got the whole class to help me write a letter to the principal. She found out and cried and shitty. I felt really horrible because she was just trying to get us ready for a test coming up. Oh, I have one for this. My grandpa was a bit old school and gave me prison yard advice for my first week of school. He said, "If anyone picks on you, just deal with them right then. Don't take it." First week of kindergarten, a grade 1 kid was pushing me around, not letting me go back to class. I pushed him down against a fence and kicked him in the face 3 or 4 times, splitting his nose. Almost got kicked out of school, until they found out my grandpa had told me to do it. Thing is, no one messed with me after, and that guy was nice to me all the way through to graduation. So, grandpa gave you good advice, huh? A kid on my track team would always come by and take a drink of whatever I had with me. I was sick of it and brought a root beer with me which had been spiked with 3x the recommended dose of root beer flavored X-Lax. Sure enough, he came by and I said, "You know what, Tony? Why don't you just take the whole thing?" Well, we were having a home meet that day and he was our best pole vaulter and part of the relay team. I thought maybe he'd feel a little off and under pre-form. In the midst of our warm-ups, he went missing and was absent the entire meet. Removed. I think I have told this before, but I think I was 15 and was in class and sat next to a friend of mine. He, for no reason, began to say, "Haha, your bald father," which I followed up with, "Haha, your bald mother." He started crying and ran to the teacher. I honestly forgot his mom had cancer and was getting chemo. Had a roommate who basically let his new GF move into our house in college. She helped herself to everything in the house but never contributed. Finally she parked in my parking spot and that was my breaking point. I let all the air out of all of her tires, thinking she'd just air them back up and it would be an inconvenience. Instead she ended up buying all new tires. Whoops. Never came clean about it. She's an idiot. Back in middle school, a friend of mine threw a small wadded piece of paper at me. I retaliated by throwing the only thing I could find, which was mud close to my shoes. Smacked him right in the face with it. Worst part is, it turned out to be dog shit that was at the bottom of my shoe. I still vividly remember his angry "WTF man, I throw paper at you and you throw dog shit." When I was a kid I was at a local river, a great swimming spot lots of people came to. My friend pushes me in the river and naturally I came up spluttering and a little red in the face. But it was all in good fun. For the rest of the day I planned to get her back, waiting for my opportunity to push her in. Until she was at the edge of the river drying off. I pushed her. But her flailing and the slippery nature of the rocks she was on made her slip on the spot. And instead of just splashing into the water, she landed on her back hitting the rocks hard. And then fell into the water. She was winded. But thankfully otherwise unharmed. Our parents were furious at me. And I just spent the few seconds it took to get her out. Felt like a lot longer to me, just hoping I hadn't broken her back or something. 2/10 revenge. Would not do again. Edit. How this really blew up. I hope we have all learned not to push people into pools and other bodies of water. When I was bullied by some local kids I filled the petrol tank of their family car with grass, dirt, sticks and stones, bottle caps. Pretty much anything I could jam into the petrol tank. I felt sorry for that poor car. My older brother was always quite horrible to me as a child and my parents never really did much about it. He was also much bigger than me so I couldn't retaliate in a physical way cause I would be swiftly cripple cross-faced walls of Jericho. One day I had just had enough. My revenge? He had been playing Rome Total War for a good 6 hours a day for about 3 weeks. I started a new game and overwrote his save file. Never seen fury like it. I regretted it at the time cause he was so angry it scared me and it made him dislike me even more, but now I praise my 13-year-old self for hitting him where it clearly hurt most. Edit. Some of you are asking how our relationship is now. It's okay. I moved away as soon as I hit 18 so I didn't see much of the family for some years. IDK what it was. But a lot of the boys in my 6th grade class thought it was hilarious to try and trip people. They'd get your ass no matter how careful you were. Well, I was pretty good at avoiding it. But when I was in gym class this kid named Joey got my ass hard. I was dribbling down court and he nailed me. I face planted hard. So I thought about how to get him. And I got him at lunch. He was holding a lunch tray. So his hands weren't as useful. He nailed a table and lost a tooth. I got suspended for 10 days. And a strict no tripping policy got implemented. Immediate suspensions if caught. Shit sucked. My dad beat my ass raw. Sorry. Joey. This one is not as serious or entertaining as most of the answers you'll find here. But when we were kids, my sister threw water at me and ran away so I picked up my glass of water and ran after her. I threw the water from the glass at her once I had her cornered. Unfortunately the glass had slipped out of my hand and it hit her right across her face. She got bruised and cut pretty bad. A neighbor lady was mean to me so I went into the laundry room after her and shit on her clothes in the washer. I was 5. I'll let you off because you were 5. But you should have waited and shat on her clothes in the dryer. When I was in nursery, preschool, a kid used to constantly bully me. Take toys off of me etc. One day, outside in the garden he stole a toy tractor I was riding on. He stood up on the seat and stuck his tongue out at me. Age 4 me had finally been broken. I ran and kicked the tractor which jolted it forward. He subsequently fell off and rolled down a hill into some stingy nettles and got some pretty bad cuts and bruises. I remember thinking right then and there, wow, I really didn't need to do that, but that little part of me felt great. I was 11. My older brother was 16. We would fight and argue, but one time I was running up the stairs away from him and he whipped the back of my legs with a long rubber chew toy. It left a pretty big figure 8 shaped welt on my legs. I knew he was faster and stronger than me and I knew if I tried to attack him he'd stop me. So I grabbed a flathead screwdriver and held it over the stove until it was red hot. I ran up to him and very openly went to stab him. Knowing he'd stop me, he grabbed my wrist to stop my thrust. As anticipated, and I pushed the red hot head of it into his forearm as hard as I could. Man. I was a crazy asshole as a kid. Sorry Mike. Edit. Bro. Didn't expect this much response to my weird childhood story. Yes. He had a scar for years. I will never forget the sound of his scream. It felt terrible. Good news. We are now super close. I was the best man at his wedding and am godfather to one of his kids. Everything's great between us now. The husband of a friend of mine was teasing me incessantly at a game night. I had finally had enough and snapped at him. You must not have had a very good mother. Turns out he was adopted. Drunk guy came at me on my porch. I was in college. It was welcome week. Kid was all kinds of f-ked up. Tried to get him to leave and finally he came up on my porch and swung. I ducked him and shoved him away. He was too drunk. Couldn't keep his balance and bounce his face off the curb. Blood. Teeth. It was brutal. I was afraid he was really hurt. But he came to pretty quickly. He ended up getting arrested before it was all said and done. He definitely did that to himself. My dad left a passive-aggressive note. I drew a dick on the note. He hasn't spoken to me for 2 weeks. Used to feel bad but I'm over it. When I was little my friends kept pointing at the little girl on the box of the board game Operation and saying it looks like me. Okay, so I got a prank call. Dude abusing me and constantly ringing me, so I set up a fake account on a dating website with pics of a cute girl and put his number in the profile description. 2 days ago. Actually. In my soccer, football I know. Game this one clumsy defender kept catching my ankles seconds after I would pass the ball away. So one play he was clearing the ball and I just wanted to lay the kid out. As he was on his plant foot swinging I hit him with my shoulder hard and as he was falling he grabbed me and took me down with him. I landed on his arm and it snapped like a twig between the wrist and the elbow. I feel awful. My parents built my brother and I an outdoor clubhouse when we were little. He got the top of the clubhouse and I got the bottom. The bottom was just a square pit of river rock and spider webs. The access to the ropes and ladders were at the top of clubhouse and he had a table and some other shit up there. We were eating lunch outside one day and I wanted to come up and eat with him. He said no, like he usually did, so I climbed up the ladder and threw my spoon at him. It hit him in the head and actually cut him head open. I feel slightly bad about it now since we get along. But he was such a dick, so were my parents, when I was a kid. When I was in middle school a kid was talking shitty to me during recess. I play punched him but I overcorrected and for some strange reason my thumb hit his throat. Got him right in the windpipe. He struggled to breathe for what seemed like minutes, but was probably only a few seconds. And was afraid of me the rest of the year. I honestly wasn't trying to be violent. And felt super bad. In middle school my good friend's mom died. We lived in a very religious town. But her family was not particularly religious. Few weeks after the funeral my friend started acting strange towards me. She would call me a bitch when she walked past me in the hallway at school. She'd give me the finger and she started turning everyone against me. I had no clue why. I still have no clue, so one day my bestie and I are walking home after school and this friend almost hits me with her bike. Starts calling me names and swearing at me. Before I could even think I blurted out, "Why don't you go join your mom?" In hell. As soon as I said it I regretted it. I got beat up at school the next day. Years later in high school I had the opportunity to apologize to her and she accepted. I really shouldn't have said that. I still feel bad more than 20 years later. That bitch deserved what you said. You didn't even ask her why she was being a CNT? Did she apologize? There was this kid at school who, I think, bullied me or at least called me names I hated. I can't really recall what he did. He didn't physically hurt me as far as I remember. Either way, I knew his mother had cancer and one day I snapped and just pointed it out. He actually cried. I felt a bit guilty too. Now I feel really bad every time I think about it. I never could apologize sincerely. But I wish I did. I had a roommate that stole food. So my 2 other roommates and I made brownies with chocolate Ex-Lax. I very clearly told her not to eat them. They were for something at school. Do not eat them. 4 of them disappeared the night she and our other roommate had a midterm. According to the other roommate, she was white as a sheet. Barely made it through the exam. And didn't come back for the second half of class. I might have picked another night. Had I known. And maybe not used the whole box of Ex-Lax. I removed the batteries from a friend's air conditioner controller as a joke once and forgot about it. I then got a phone call from my friend a few days later asking me if I did it. I finally fessed up and it turned out her mum had called the aircon company demanding they come out and fix the air conditioner since it wasn't turning on. Until they asked her to check the batteries. Which weren't there. I heard a rumor in 4th grade that the evil Vikram was going to try to pants me at recess the following day. I took the proper precautions by wearing a bathing suit as underwear with the string tied around my waist to the point it was impossible to go past my hips. Sure enough. When he went to pants me, my jeans hit the floor but my swim shorts worked like a charm. The part I didn't plan was the weird donkey kick to his chest knocking him onto his back and the farts in his face that followed. It just happened okay. He got pinky and that's how I learned the whole poop particle pinky thing. Edit. After remembering this event, I take it back. On high school I had this shrew of a biology teacher. She exploded in anger for no apparent reason. Gave detention like it was nothing. We hated her. Part of biology was SX. Ed. And she explained it using the flowers and bees method. Suddenly she went on sick leave for a couple of weeks. But eventually came back. After some time we learned that she had a miscarriage. We immediately knew this was our way of prepubescent payback. Every biology class, the whole class, and I somewhat upfront, asked if she could explain the flowers and the bees again. After a couple of times she snapped. Started crying. Stormed out of the classroom never to be seen again. Immediately we realizes we went way too far. I eventually heard she quit teaching altogether and even was institutionalized for some time. Even 25 years later it makes me feel bad. My neighbors were always letting their cat roam free. And the cat came in our yard daily to poop in my flower beds. Once Kitty came when I was painting the house. And assuming that they would think the cat got into something she shouldn't, I went to dab a little bit of paint on her back. She loved it and decided to run her entire back on the underside of the paint roller. I knew then that I wouldn't get away with it. So I had to take her inside to give her a warm bath while my greyhound, who was highly aggressive towards cats, was outside the bathroom acting like the velociraptors in the kitchen scene in Jurassic Park. Next wrapped Kitty in a warm towel. Then used the hairdryer. She absolutely adored the experience and revealed in it as if it were a spa day for her. So my revenge on the neighbors netted them a free grooming session for their cat. I'm glad it turned out that way though. Because I realized immediately that it was not okay in any way to seek revenge on an innocent animal for what its owners were doing. In high school, I watched a bully ball slap a 9th grader. Because he could. That day, after PE, I stood up for that little kid and gave the bully a taste of his own medicine. He immediately hunches over and hits the floor. Ended up in the hospital pissing blood. Or so I was told. Bully's mom believed my side of the story just as much as his and refused to press charges. Good thing too. I had just turned 18 a month prior.